Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
Israeli Defense Forces destroyed a Palestinian terror tunnel, killing several Islamic Jihad and Hamas operatives. Among the dead are said to be several high-ranking members of the radical groups. The IDF said the subterranean passageway stretched from the Gaza Strip city of Khan Yunis underneath the Israeli border and nearly reached Kibbutz Kisufim in southern Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commended the military on the destruction of the tunnel and hailed the breakthrough technology that led to its discovery. Netanyahu said the IDF has made great advancements in combating the terror threat, which includes the construction of a below-ground obstacle. Aaron has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan. Israel's defense minister was on the Gaza border recently, where he inspected the underground barrier which will eventually surround Gaza and prevent tunneling from the Hamas stronghold into Israel. Avigdor Lieberman said that the structure will significantly improve the security of the residents of southern Israel. This revolutionary barrier will stretch for 60 kilometers and will be equipped with a highly advanced underground protection system. Hamas terrorists have used subsurface tunnels to murder and kidnap Israelis. In 2014, Israel confirmed that the terror group had planned a major attack on Israel using a tunnel to smuggle more than 200 gunmen from Gaza into an Israeli town. Security experts believe that had that attack been successful, Israel would have seen mass civilian casualties and dozens of Jews could have also been kidnapped.
The United Nations High Commissioner has sent letters to 190 companies threatening a boycott of their services for operating in the heartland of Israel. These warnings are said to precede a blacklist of the businesses that will be published by the UN Human Rights Council. The boycott document is part of an initiative proposed by the Palestinian Authority. It names 130 Israeli-owned companies, as well as 60 major international corporations, including Hewlett-Packard, Motorola, Caterpillar, Ahava Cosmetics, and Remax. Several of the companies claim the blacklist is politically motivated and that the UN is showing a clear bias by singling out firms operating in the Jewish state. One Israeli CEO who received a notice of boycott released a powerful statement noting that 50% of the resolutions passed by the UN Human Rights Council condemns or denounces Israel. She said no other country has been afforded such attention by the world body, not North Korea, Syria, Sudan, or Yemen. She vowed that she will not cooperate with the UNHCR on this initiative, which she labeled as anti-Israel propaganda. And she stressed that her company would continue to provide Israelis with quality service.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry has launched a multifaceted campaign against a proposed restitution bill in the Polish government. If passed, this law will make it nearly impossible for Polish victims of the Holocaust to receive compensation. More than 3 million Polish Jews were murdered during the Holocaust, yet Poland is the only major European country that has not enacted legislation to provide victims of the genocide and their descendants with reparations for property seized during the war. The proposed legislation, which is reportedly being fast-tracked through the Polish government, holds several clauses which are intended to prevent the majority of survivors from receiving compensation.
Italy's sports minister has ruled that portions of the Diary of Anne Frank will be read out loud before the start of all soccer matches in the country. The move is in response to increasing anti-Semitic incidents by fans. Recently, sports hooligans plastered stickers of Anne Frank wearing the Roma team's soccer jersey with the slogan, "Roma fans are Jews." This is just the latest in a series of disturbing anti-Semitic occurrences at sports matches, and the Italian government has pledged its commitment to stopping them.
The State of Israel's Holocaust Memorial has recognized an Egyptian doctor for his efforts in saving Jews during the Holocaust. Mohammed Helmi was regarded as righteous among the nations at a ceremony last week in Berlin. Helmi was the first Arab to be honored by Yad Vashem in 2013. 4 years later, the hero's great-nephew agreed to travel to Berlin to accept the honor on behalf of his late uncle. Yad Vashem has honored 26,500 people for risking their own lives to save Jews from the Nazis during the Holocaust by recognizing them as righteous among the nations.
The Jewish state hosted more than 400 emergency services representatives from 3 countries. Jordan, France, Spain, and even members of the Palestinian Authority participated in drills simulating natural disasters and humanitarian aid situations. The exercises are meant to increase the participants' capabilities and the sharing of intelligence. This drill was unique in that it put special emphasis on wildlife protection in times of natural disasters. As host, Israel's Ministry of Internal Affairs led the exercises, and members of nearly every branch of Israel's response services took part. Hundreds of cavalrymen from New Zealand and Australia were in Israel for the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Beersheba. Many of the participants in the reenactment are direct descendants of the soldiers who liberated the Negev city from the Ottomans in 1917 and cleared the way for General Edmund Allenby to advance his troops to Jerusalem. The city's municipality celebrated the opening of the Anzac Soldiers Memorial Center, and in addition to hosting the reenactment of the historic charge, there was also a regal cavalry parade throughout the old city of Beersheba. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu presided over the celebrations, and he was joined by his Australian counterpart, Malcolm Turnbull, and New Zealand's Governor-General, Dame Patricia Reddy.
Archaeologists digging in the biblical city of Beit El discovered the remains of another ancient community underneath an old army base. The town is about 2,700 years old and was inhabited by Jews during the First Temple period. There is evidence of Jews living there throughout the Persian Empire's control of the land. The community grew during the Hellenistic and Hasmonean periods and continued until the Roman occupation, when most Jews were expelled from Israel. Archaeologists discovered evidence that Christians inhabited the city during the Byzantine period. A monastery, a church, and a beautifully preserved bathhouse were uncovered in the excavation. The Christian community remained in the city until the Muslim period, at which time the Christians were driven out. An archaeologist said that these findings are unbelievable. The site opens a window to virtually every historical period in Israel since the First Temple.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has rejected calls to apologize for the Balfour Declaration. Instead, she vowed to celebrate the historic document's centennial with great zeal. It was on November 2, 1917, that British Foreign Secretary Sir Arthur Balfour wrote an historic letter to the English leader of the Jewish community, stating that his government views with favor the establishment of a Jewish homeland for the Jewish people. This letter went on to serve as the basis for the popular support of Zionism, which eventually led to the creation of the State of Israel. The Palestinians have repeatedly demanded that London apologize for the declaration, and they've even threatened to sue the United Kingdom for damages. But the British Prime Minister has remained committed to celebrating this occasion, saying the Balfour document is one of the most important letters in history as it demonstrates Britain's role in creating a homeland for the Jewish people. She said it is an anniversary we will be marking with pride.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here on another beautiful day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Dexter Van Zyl. He is the Christian media analyst for CAMRA. Dexter, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dexter, tell our viewers a little about what is CAMRA?
CAMRA is the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting in America. It was founded in the early 1980s to respond to misinformation put forth in the media about the Arab-Israeli conflict. And essentially what we do is we contact editors and publishers and reporters when there are errors or mistakes or factual misstatements in newspaper articles, TV shows, and also now in online publications.
You're the Christian media analyst. We all know about the fact that there's a bias in media, but is there also a bias in Christian media?
The bias that I deal with is, I started out as primarily dealing with the bias in the media put forth by liberal Protestant churches in the United States. And that was essentially why I was hired in 2006. The liberal Protestant churches in the United States essentially portrayed Israel as if it was in control of the violence directed at it. And so what we had to do is to basically unpack a lot of that misinformation.
You were here a few weeks ago for this conference, a Christian Media Summit by the Government Press Office, about Bible-believing Christian media. How is that different from the mainline Christian media that you look at?
Well, I think the liberal Protestants, they do read the Bible, but essentially one of the things that I think they have a difficult time doing is coming to grips with the reality of Islamist hostility towards Jews and towards Christians. Essentially and one of the things is that they will, affirm Judaism as a religion, but they end up basically showing extreme indifference to the safety of the Jewish people.
At this Christian Media Summit that you attended, there are people from all over the Christian media world. Are you seeing a positive flow of information in Bible-believing Christian media?
Yeah, for the most part, the evangelical Protestants or the Bible-believing Christians, essentially what they do is they generally affirm Israel's right to exist, and they will speak openly and honestly about the threats that Israel faces.
Why do you think some of these mainline churches are at the same time degrading Israel, but they're uplifting radical Islam against Israel, even though that goes against their own well-being, their own interests?
Well, one of the things is that the mainline churches in the United States, they regard people, particularly they regard Arabs and Muslims as the magical other. That's the way I look at it. That's the language that I've used to describe it. They essentially don't want to say anything critical of people they think who are underprivileged, and they look at Jews and Israelis as if they are the privileged people in the region.
How could they see it as that, since we're one nation surrounded by 22 Muslim states, there's only 13 million Jews in the world, over 1 billion Muslims, how could we be the weaker part in the region, the wealthier part in the region?
That's a good question. I think one of the factors is that they interact with Jews in the United States, and they regard Jews in the United States as powerful. And so what happens is that they have a tough time actually looking at the reality in the region, and so they look at Israel through the lens of the interactions that they have with Jews in the U.S.
One of the theories here in Israel is that people who support replacement theology, that they believe that the churches actually replace Israel, are less likely to be standing with Israel or give Israel a fair shake in the media. Have you seen that?
You see, I think that really is one of the odd things, is that the liberal Protestant churches in the 1980s and early 1990s issued statements condemning replacement theology. But what happened is that at a certain point they basically became so enamored of the Palestinian cause that they threw out or abandoned that commitment to be critical of replacement or replacement theology or supersessionism.
We here at Israel Now News strive to give fair news, a fair shake about what's really happening in the Middle East, but we see that that's not a trend in the Christian media, especially mainline. Are you seeing like more anti-Israel trend or a more pro-Israel trend coming forth?
The churches that have invested most heavily into the anti-Zionism in the United States are two in particular: the United Church of Christ and also the Presbyterian Church USA. And those churches seem to be kind of impenetrable to any effort to be, they're ineducable, quite frankly. Some of the other liberal Protestant churches, I think, now are starting to step away from the anti-Zionism, but we'll have to see.
Dexter, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I guess right now, one of the things is that as a Roman Catholic, I'm very proud to basically be part of a church that has condemned and criticized this replacement theology. And I guess really, if you're interested in promoting peace and justice in the Middle East, one of the things that you have to do is to speak honestly about the impact of jihad on religious and ethnic minorities in the region.
Thank you, Dexter, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. after 2,000 years, we found the descendants of the lost tribe of Dan. Please help us welcome our brothers and sisters back home. God bless you from Jerusalem.
A mission to Ethiopia. Through their deep faith, Roy and Yuklin Chen, a devout Bible-believing Christian couple from Hong Kong, received a sign from heaven, revealing their personal mission in life. They found it in an amazing series of inspired events that took them on a transformative spiritual journey along a road strewn with signs and wonders to help realize God's promise to return the exiled people of Israel back to their ancestral homeland.
In 2006, on November the 11th at 5 o'clock in the morning, the Lord woke me up and started to tell me to look up different books, chapter 11, verse 11, which is that He will bring His children from all corners of the world back home, including places like Cush. After we found out that Cush is Ethiopia and was praying, meditating on Psalm 87, suddenly the Lord says, bring the Ethiopian Jews back.
They traveled all the way from Hong Kong to Ethiopia, where they were joined by Eliezer Moody Sandberg, world chairman of Kerenei Yesod, who is tasked with bringing the rest of the Ethiopian Jews back to Israel.
After 2 years of hearing from God, a specific assignment that we now have a chance to actually participate in something so historically significant. We felt the Lord telling us to actually meet with the remaining Ethiopian Jews, to encourage them, to remind them that Father God, Abba, has not forgotten them, but that in His perfect time, He will bring them back, His sons and daughters.
The Lord says, stop everything and write everything down. And He gave us Isaiah 17, 18, and 19. And then He says, call the world 777. We didn't understand what it meant. This year is the year 5777. So we wondered whether this is the year that we are to call the world to support the Aliyah of these Velash Mura and of the other lost tribes.
The Israeli government has just authorized the movement of, at the time, the last batch of Ethiopian Jews back to Israel. And the operation was going to be called Operation Wings of a Dove. This is the piece of jewelry that I picked up for my wife. And the name of the operation was called the Wings of a Dove. I showed it to everyone at the meeting, and everyone was totally shocked. All of us started to weep. This was a divine appointment.
Inspired by the Ethiopian Jewish community's love for the God, state, and people of Israel, this journey strengthened their determination to fulfill this biblical prophecy and inspire others to help bring an exile of almost 3,000 years to a final close.
We feel very blessed to be here with you because we were sent to come here. We just want to make an appeal, if we can, and ask that you, as you watch this and hear our story, that you would also first pray for the Ethiopian Jews, that they would be able to be brought back quickly, safely, and that secondly, whether God has called you also to support this movement.
We have visited their camp in Gondor. Many of them have died while waiting to go home.
Together, we will bring all our brothers and sisters back to Jerusalem. Toda Rabba. Thank you very much.
Thus said the Lord God, behold, I will lift up my hand to the nations and set up my standard to the peoples, and they will bring your sons into their bosom, and your daughters will be carried on their shoulders. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 22.
Come join Kerenei Yesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Israel is the only country in the Middle East where minorities not only have rights, they have full civic and democratic rights. Those rights are inscribed in Israel's first piece of legislation, Israel's Declaration of Independence, enacted on May 14th, 1948, designed by many former Americans who were deeply influenced by America's Declaration of Independence. That declaration guarantees all of Israel's citizens full equality before the law and guarantees their democratic rights. And so seriously did Israel's founding fathers and mothers take this undertaking that at the height of Israel's War of Independence, while Arab armies were bearing down on the nascent Jewish state and preparing to destroy it, that Israel's Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, gave Arab Israelis, who were even fighting then at that moment against the Jewish state, gave them the right to vote in the 1949 Israeli elections. Truly unparalleled, unmatched in human history. For Israeli Christians in particular, these minority rights are outstanding, certainly by any standards, by Middle Eastern standards, beyond calibration. Israel has the only growing and flourishing Christian population in the Middle East. Our Christian population has grown by 1,000% since 1948, and Arab Israeli Christians are per capita better educated and more affluent even than Israeli Jews. So Israel is a bastion of equal rights. Here in the Knesset, where I work, there are some 14 Arab members, there's a Christian member, there are Druze members. They all passed legislation. They engaged in very loud debates. Here, we're a 2-hour drive from the Syrian civil war. Minorities not only are permitted, minorities not only exist, minorities thrive.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
ስሜ ሳሱብሽ ገድፍ አዲስ እባላለሁ። እዚህ ጎንደር የተቀመጥነው 19 ዓመታችን ነው። ለኛ ትልቅ ነገር ነው። እስራኤል መሆናችን በራሱ ኩራት ነው ለኛ። ከዚህ የምንኖረውን ሰዎች ከእኛና አንድ አምላክ ብቻ ነው ችግራችንን የሚያውቀው። የቤተሰብ ናፍቆት አለብን። ሁለተኛ ደግሞ ከዚህ ስንኖር እኛን መጠየቅ የሚመጣ እንግዳ እንኳን የለም። ምክንያቱም እንዴ ማለት እንግዳ ለምን አስመጣችሁ? ሽንት ቤት ሞላብን። በዛ ላይ ደግሞ ስንት ልጅ አላችሁ ቤት በምትከራይበት ጊዜ? እግዚአብሔር ፈቅዶት ከገባነ እንግዲህ ህይወታችን ሀ ብለን እንጀምር። ከዛ ነው መማር ካለብን እንማራለን፣ መስራት ካለብን እንሰራለን። እኛም እንደማንኛውም ወገኖቻችን እንደማንኛውም ዘመዶቻችን ሀገራችን እንድታድግ ተምረን ልጆቻችንን ማስተምረን ምንልበት ከዛ ነው እና ከዛ በመሄዴ በጣም ደስ ይለኛል። ቤተሰብክን ስታገኝ ምን ያክል ደስታ ይሰማሃል? ይሄን ያክል አመት ብቻህን ኖረህ ያው በጣም ደስ ይለኛል። መጨረሻ ላይ ማታ ሰዓት ስለነበረ አሁን እየደረሳችሁ ነው ቀበታ ጥብቁ ምናምን ስንባል ወደ ታች እንጂ ስናይ ያው በጣም ያምራል ከተማውን አየን ማለት ያው ከዛ በኋላ ውስጥ ያመነ ገባ አይ በቃ አሁን ቤተሰቦች እንዳገኘ ነው አሁን መጥቻለሁ በቃ አልኩኝ እና ሁሉም ሰው አለቀሰ ምክንያቱም ማለት አብዛኛውን ከኔ ጋር የመጡት ሰዎች ልክ እንደኔ ብዙ ችግር ያዩ ናቸው መጨረሻ ላይ ህዝቡ በሩ እንደተከፈተ ዌልካም ብለው ሲጮሁ በቃ የዛኔ እሚታይ ትዝ ትለኛለች እሚታይ ያቻትነት ብላ ሩጣ ትመጣለች መላቀስም የዛን ሰዓት በጣም ነው ደስ የሚለው
ከዚህ እስካለ ጊዜ ትምህርት ነው ለልጆችም ለኛም ትምህርት ነው በመንግስት ስር ነህ ገዝተህ ቤት ስትወጣ ነው ራስህን ችለህ ለልጆችም ለአንተም ህይወትን እና የበለጠ ደግሞ ለነሱ ምስጋና ነው የምናቀርበው እኛ ምንም ማለት አንችልም እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልን ውለታቸውን እግዚአብሔር ይክፈለው
place where Jesus walked, that Bible is alive. It's alive. All the nations are here. We want to tell Israel, you are not alone. We are standing with you. This is a forces of heaven. Come up to Jerusalem.
That's going to do it for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.